And so, welcome to Liberty Blue, the best Rangers podcast in town. I am Andrew Chonley, alongside Nick Zararis. We scream about the Rangers so that you don't have to. This is episode 74, live on Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube, and we are available wherever you get your podcasts as well. Nick, they lost against Columbus, but through 2 games, the Rangers have looked pretty damn good for the most part.
I got no complaints. Granted, 2 games is not a lot to determine anything definitively, but they look competent. It hasn't been ugly. They haven't asked Shesterkin to do too much. They've had the puck a lot at 5-on-5. They haven't been hemmed in their own zone for extended periods of time. All of the little things have been there so far. Of course, 2 games, plenty of time for that to go in the opposite direction. But at the very least, you feel like there has been progress. The preseason, trying to determine anything from the preseason is always a fool's errand, as we talked about a lot during the lead up in the month of in the month of September up till now. Is just not everybody's trying. It's hard to gauge what exactly is serious and what isn't, but there was incremental progress. There's still stuff to iron out. The penalty kill has been a little weird. I know that they took a lot of lumps the other day on Thursday blocking shots, and you're going to get somebody killed playing that style of penalty kill, but at the very least, there is stuff. This is workable here. This is not we're drowning. We're trying to tread water best we can at 5-on-5 and waiting for our best players to make plays. Our best players have made plays, and we've controlled play for extended periods of time.
They've looked good. It's not like games against Columbus will happen where they looked really good in that first period, a couple of disallowed goals, and they kind of let the game get away from them. That second period was kind of just gross from them.
Yeah.
Columbus kind of skated circles around them. Rangers looked kind of surprised at how Columbus was playing them, and Columbus took advantage for what it's, give them credit. They played well, and they got the win, but the Rangers dominated the first period. They dominated the third period, and sometimes hockey is a silly, stupid sport, and the team that doesn't actually deserve to win wins the game. It's 1 out of 82, whatever. It would be, if they looked really bad for the entire game against Columbus, I would be a lot more worried about it. But they look good. For the most part, they looked really good. There wasn't anything major besides that second period stretch where they just kind of let Columbus take over that really screams red flags to me. It's something that I would have to imagine that Laviolette's going to iron out, look at the tape, and be like, all right, guys, the hell happened? Can we figure this out? Like, fix this, because this can't happen again. It's game 2. They dominated Buffalo. I mean, that was never even close. They looked really good. Laviolette's got Panarin shooting the puck. I mean, like, this is a new revelation of a team. They got Panarin doing things. They look good.
You got Panarin shooting. You got Lafreniere extremely engaged on the forecheck. That was one of his best games as a pro last Thursday against Buffalo. He made the play in the neutral zone that directly led to the Panarin goal. He made a play on the puck where he watched Panarin skate to the middle. Both of the Buffalo defenders got drawn to the middle because Panarin was there. Lafreniere had the time to look to his left and his right, realized nobody was within 10 feet of him, and leaked to the back door where Panarin got the puck across, and it was an easy tap in. Lafreniere, really strong game around the puck a lot, which is something we talked about last week as like, what does a good season for him look like? It's stuff like that. It's not just counting stats. It's not just goals and assists. Is he winning loose pucks? Is he an impactful player in the neutral zone? Is the puck finding him? I quote that cliche Rick Nash quote all the time. The good players find the puck, and puck finds good players. It's true. Good players are the ones who make the game come to them because of the type of game they play, and Lafreniere has the ability to do that. It's just a matter of doing it a little more consistently. And one last thing on Columbus, that a little bit weird game. You had the 2 goals get disallowed. Lindgren was a late scratch. Pitlick was a late scratch where I think I read that they told Lindgren was going to be out like 5 minutes before the game started. So Jones kind of got thrown in there, not expecting to play. He didn't look comfortable, but he's got thrown in there last minute. Him and Schneider, when you're not familiar with each other, you're not going to be as effective passing guys on and off. The one goal they conceded against was ugly because they just didn't pass the guy off to the other one. But big picture wise, yeah, you're fine. You don't feel bad about that. I was curious as to how they were going to divvy up the defense on Saturday without Lindgren. Gustafson with Fox is an interesting idea. I'd like to see a little more experimentation here and there on that back end in particular. But as far as play wise, I'm pretty content. It's 2 games. You didn't look bad in either one. If we're in the NHL 5 years ago, both of those goals stands because there's no offsides review, and you probably win that game 4-1, 5-2. So yeah, I don't feel bad about losing to Columbus. You're going to lose hockey games. You don't go 82-0. That's not realistic. Sure, you would like to win, especially against teams like Columbus, where that's one of your easier games by definition, but not worried about it.
The thing about that game is that if they lost 5-3 and the Rangers had 8 shots and Columbus was in the offensive zone for most of the game, I would be worried. They lost 5-3. Their goalies played really well. Even Spencer Martin had some pretty good saves coming in the third period. Unexpectedly, he played well for the most part. Like, these games will happen. The Rangers dominated for big stretches. Columbus just took advantage in the second period, and they kind of piled on, and that's exactly what teams are supposed to do. And it would be a lot more concerning if they just looked. If that second period was the entire game and it was 5-3, I would be more concerned with how this team was looking. But for the most part, they look good. Some hiccups that Peter Laviolette and coaching staff will fix. For right now, I'm not worried.
It's nice. I mean, realistically, it is nice to have, at least for now, the assumption that the coaching staff actually has a grasp on what they need to do to improve these things, as opposed to what we've seen in the past where the coach will be passive aggressive, giving comments to the media. He will not do anything. He will let his leaders take over, and the leaders don't actually do anything. That was one of the things I found very interesting about the lead up to last week was the features I read about Trouba being the captain, about how everybody likes him as a leader. Well, the entire point of doing the hands-off coach, like the player's coach, is if you have a good leader, the good leader will hold people accountable. The good leader didn't do anything about holding anyone accountable last year. So it is good that they have got a second layer of leadership, frankly, in a coach on top of the players, because this is a group that has been given the tough to coach label. This is something that is not, this is not a secret. This is not a new phenomenon. We talked about it with Sam. We talked about it last week. Multiple coaches have said this group is very stubborn and playing the way they want to play. So if Laviolette is going to finally be the one to break through to kind of get them to be like, hey, if you guys actually want to win a Stanley Cup, as opposed to just talking about winning a Stanley Cup, we're going to have to play a little bit differently. And so far, you've seen that. You have seen as the forecheck, that the forecheck in the neutral zone have always been the barometer for the Rangers the last couple of years. They can play with anyone in the league when they've got their forecheck going, when they are engaged in a neutral zone. When it is clunky, when it is dump and chase and nobody pursuing the loose puck, when it is turning the puck over in the neutral zone, that's when they get outplayed. That's when faster teams exploit them. But so far, they have done a good job of getting the puck in deep, pressuring guys on the other team into moving the puck or turning the puck over, and maintaining zone time. Like even the Trocheck, Cooley, and Wheeler line against Buffalo, they look pretty good. They had multiple extended shifts where they hem Buffalo in 45, 50 seconds at a time. And that's with Blake Wheeler, who you and I were both talking about, and a lot of Ranger fans have said they've been pretty unimpressed with for 2 weeks. So you can mask a lack of speed with strong forecheck play. It's just a matter of, making this a good habit and something that's repeatable.
I mean, I tweeted this out, speaking of Blake Wheeler, earlier today, of like, it'll be fun to argue about who the Rangers trade for third right wing at the deadline, because Blake Wheeler, oh my God, if there's anything through those 2 games to complain about, it is Blake Wheeler, because my man's looks like he's got cement on his feet. The Rangers aren't the fastest team by any stretch of the imagination. Blake Wheeler makes everybody else look like speed demons. He is laboring so hard, and you mentioned it before we started recording that he's on a line that is supposed to be winning foot races in these dump and chase situations. He's supposed to be one of the forwards in and creating havoc in the corners of the offensive zone. Havoc? My man's is not going to get there. Like, he's not even close through 2 games. And again, it's 2 games. But he didn't look good in preseason either. Like, and it's one thing to say, oh, these players don't care. It's preseason, all these things. But sure, you could still look fast in preseason, which Blake Wheeler did not do. And through 2 games that matter in the standings, he looked equally as slow. So maybe he speeds up in the next few games. I don't know.
Maybe he's like a diesel engine in the winter. You got to give him a little while to warm up to get going.
Like, maybe you just got to rev him up, and eventually he'll start going like he's an old car. But like, I'm a little bit worried about Blake Wheeler if he's supposed to be the third line winger. Now, the solace here is that he makes essentially a league minimum. So the Rangers could
make him go
him with any money. Yeah, he's a contract the Rangers could get away from as quickly as they got into. It's a 1-year deal, essentially a league minimum, so they could do whatever they want in that spot. But they gave it to him, and people were like, "Oh, this is a great signing. He's making pennies on the dollar." Oh, really? But again, it's one of those situations where everybody looks at what he's done to this point as opposed to what he can do for this team in 2023-24. The same thing happened with Kane, and now it's happening with Wheeler. People look at their resumes and say, oh, this guy put up X amount of points in this season and that and all these things, but they forget that he's not 26 years old, and he was never the fastest skater to begin with. He's not 26 years old anymore. He's slowing down tremendously and at a rapid pace, and that right now is my biggest concern. Like, the third line is supposed to be the speedy, dump the puck in and chase after it and create havoc in the offensive zone. They can't do that if Blake Wheeler is hobbling at the red line when the puck is down deep.
No, you can't. And there's a few things off of that point. Number one, of course, it's only 2 games. You can get away with having lower speed players if you play them a certain way. Something I was talking about with one of my friends over the weekend who asked, is Blake Wheeler actually bad, or do they not know what to do with him yet? And what I said was, this is a guy who's been playing 17, 18 minutes a game since 2008, 2009, who's gotten ample power play time, who has always played with the best players on his team. And I'm trying to pull up who his most common line mates were while you were talking, and I'm going to have that in a second. But when you are fundamentally changing what you're asking Blake Wheeler to do. He played 17 minutes a game last year. He's down to 13 minutes a game this year. He played a lot with Dubois last year. He played with Nick Ehlers last year. He played with high-end players last year. Vinny Trocheck, Will Cuylle are not those types of players. They are not a Mark Scheifele, who is a great facilitator. Those are straight line, go get the puck, get it towards the net, crash the net. Wheeler is a decent distributor and has a passable shot. That works with 2 puck retrievers. The issue for him is winning those loose pucks and being engaged in the other aspects. This is similar to what we talked about in respect to Patrick Kane last year, where once he got here was he's fine if he's stationary because the puck skills and the IQ are still there. It's trying to make a play, trying to find space. Those things are hard to do when you are not as fast as you used to be. A lot of guys struggle with adapting as their skill sets change as they get older, and it's 2 games. There's plenty of time for them to figure out what he's going to be and how they want to use him. But he was never going to flirt with that 50, 60 points he had last year playing the minutes the Rangers are going to ask him. 4 minutes less a game is a significantly less ice time than what he is used to. And he's not going to get on that first power play unit like he's done in the past. That's where the bulk of your counting stats come from, especially when you're later in your career. Like, I pulled it up right now. Blake Wheeler, Gray. So a lot of time with Kyle Connor, a lot of time with Pierre-Luc Dubois, and a lot of time with Cole Perfetti, some time with Nick Ehlers, some time with Mark Scheifele. Those are pretty good players. No disrespect to Vinny Trocheck, no disrespect to Will Cuylle. Those guys are not those guys. None of those guys is Mark Scheifele. None of them is Nick Ehlers. None of those guys is Kyle Connor. So if Wheeler's going to be the distributor that they want him to be, they're going to have to find ways to protect him, especially on the forecheck, where it's okay if Trocheck and Cuylle go get the puck, but Wheeler has to be fast enough to get into the play for them.
My concern right now for Blake Wheeler, and for the 30th time we'll reiterate that it's only been 2 games, so it's, we take this with a grain of salt. But my biggest concern now with Blake Wheeler is that, okay, a lot of his points used to come on the power play. Well, he's not.
No,
on the power
I wouldn't say
play
that.
anymore.
Not a lot.
I mean,
fair amount.
A good chunk. Okay, so let's
I would say about 20%, 15-20%
of his
points.
If he got 50 points last season or however many that he,
55.
I'm just gonna round, just make everything nice and round. If he had 50 points last season, 10 came on the power play, 40 points at even strength. Okay, let's start there. He plays with guys that, I don't want to say create offense for him, but give him space to work with. The other team will more readily defend Mark Scheifele, Nick Ehlers, Kyle Connor, and they will readily defend Blake Wheeler by default because those guys are stars. Blake Wheeler is no longer a star in the NHL. He was at one point. It's no longer that time in his career. So teams will by default give him a little bit more room to work with because they're so busy caring about everybody else on the ice. So he played 17 minutes with guys like that and still put up about 40 points at even strength. Now, while also not being a fast skater last season either. Now you go into a new system, in a new environment, with new teammates, a new head coach, a new everything. You're playing a new role, a third-line role, with not Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor and Nick Ehlers. You're slower than you were, and you're not getting power play time. So where is his offense going to come from? That's my question for Blake Wheeler. Because if he's not going to create it himself, who is going to do it for him? Will Cooley is not that kind of player. Vinny Trocheck is not that kind of player. So where is his offense specifically going to come from? Because I don't know.
In an ideal world, they run that line like a traditional checking line with Cooley and Trocheck as the guys who play fetch, who go get the loose puck, and Wheeler is somewhere lurking around the perimeter he gets the puck on the second or third touch, and then he's the one who is setting up the play. That's the kind of dynamic they're looking for. But again, that does limit what you're able to do because teams are going to cheat towards him because they know he's got to be the one to distribute because they know he's not going to be the one to go and win the foot race. So moving along to the next topic I wanted to bring up, something I noticed, and of course, it's only been 2 games, which we will say about another 100 times in the next 25, 30 minutes, but something else I noticed that I am a proponent of, that I am encouraged by so far, is that they've tinkered with their alignment on the power play a little bit. I'm not going to get into the nuances of, well, I'd rather Kakko versus Trocheck or Lafreniere versus Trocheck or whoever, but something they did at least against Buffalo and a little bit against Columbus was instead of Trocheck occupying that middle lane in between the 2 circles and drawing defenders closer to him, which in theory enables the wide pass, the cross ice pass from circle to circle, they had Trocheck leaking out towards one of the circles and leaving that middle lane where it's just the person at the top of the diamond penalty kill approaching Fox. And Fox is at the top, and then they've got Zibanejad, Trocheck, and then they've got Panarin over here. That and Kreider at the net front. That gives Fox a more clear sight line on the net. That is something I advocated for at points last year when the power play went cold. The power play finished 7th last year, which still very good. But I read more than one preview, and I know Dom Luszczyszyn at The Athletic mentioned this in his, and I'll reiterate it. The Rangers power play should have been better last year. They got a little bit unlucky. They didn't get as many deflections and tips as they did the year before when they finished second only behind Edmonton. So in theory, you're giving yourself a second play. Yeah, I know you reiterated this a lot last season and complained about this at various points where the power play felt very forced, where it was just get the puck to Zibanejad, one-timer. Now, in keeping that middle lane more open, where it's just Kreider in front of the net and it's Fox at the point, you are giving yourself 2 plays now. You are giving yourself Fox to just shoot and look for Kreider or shoot himself, or he can go to his left to Trocheck or to Zibanejad. And ideally, this is why you would like a left-handed person in the Panarin spots for that reason, so you could have another one-timer to distribute to. But at least you have 2 options now as opposed to 1 like last year. That is encouraging and something you can take away as, okay, the coaching staff identified this. They're trying to tinker, experiment, and find out if there's another level of optimization.
The other positive to getting Trocheck out of that middle lane and on the power play is it allows Kreider a better sense of where a shot from the point is going to go. That's what gave him 52 goals 2 seasons ago. Was he would very clearly see where the puck was going, and he had a clear sight to be like, all right, I'm just going to deflect it here. Bang, that's a goal, easy money. Let me get my paycheck, and I'm gone. Like, he was really good at that because he saw where the shot was coming from, and it was very clearly telegraphed by Fox or Trouba or Miller or whoever it was on that power play in that specific situation, because he didn't have Trocheck defending, essentially doing the Sean Avery in front of the net. Like, he didn't have that to deal with. It was him in front, and you saw it again. You saw that goal against Buffalo in the season opener, where Fox was patient with it. He moved a little bit to the side, got himself a little bit more room. Chris Kreider saw what he was going to do. It was very telegraphed to Kreider because they've been playing for so long, and all Fox had to do was kind of just throw it at the net. Kreider got the tip, and it's an easy goal. If Trocheck is standing in between them, Kreider doesn't see it, Fox doesn't see the lane, and then all of a sudden we have to keep forcing that cross-ice pass. But because Trocheck gave himself that space on the other side instead of jamming the middle, that gives that tip play so much more room to work with, because they're not, a lot of the defensemen on the diamond are going to be blocking Zibanejad, Panarin. Yeah, they're going to have a defenseman close to Fox, but they're not going to be so close that they're going to let Fox essentially skate around them and move into the lane. That's not going to happen. Fox has space to just kind of fling it, and Kreider has the space to see where Fox is flinging it, and it's an easy goal. They got away from that last season, and that was my biggest issues, was why fix what's not broken. Kreider is really good at this, and Fox is really good at just lobbing him up. These are easy goals. And Laviolette, it took literally 0 games. His season opener was like, I'm fixing this. It's not happening anymore. And Kreider got the goal. Like, it's easy.
You just want options. That's the biggest thing, especially when we're talking about the power play, especially for a team that has this much high-end talent. The Rangers realistically need to finish top 5 in the power play conversion rate this season. They have the talent to do it. It's just a matter of going out and doing it. Now that they have 2 variations of that play, where they can go off to one of the sides and look for the cross seam, or they can do the deflection, you are giving yourself more options. At various points last year, it felt very forced. There were points after the trade deadline where they changed 2 of the 5 guys on the power play, and there was just no feel for it anymore. So they would just consistently force that cross seam pass, and it just wasn't there. Now, at the very least, you feel like there's a give and take there, that there's a willingness to experiment, and not just doing what's comfortable, trying to find ways to get better. That was something we complained about a lot last year, was that the Rangers felt pretty content with what they were. They didn't push any boundaries. They didn't experiment. They just autopiloted through the season. They finished with 107 points, and then they got to the playoffs and they weren't able to adapt because they hadn't adapted all season. It was, well, this works 90% of the time, so we're just going to keep doing this until it works. But in a short series, you can't do that. Water does not find its level in a best of 7 series. Water finds its level over 82 games. And that's a real philosophical difference that so far, at least, I'm encouraged with.
Right now, it looks like a team that actually wants to figure things out now, as opposed to game 1 of the playoffs, which that's what they did. That's exactly what they did last year. They had that mentality of, oh, it's fine. We'll turn it on in the playoffs. We'll figure it out. It's fine. That's not how hockey works. That's not how the sport works. You have to figure things out now so that when you get to the playoffs, you not only know what works, you also know what doesn't work. You have figured out, okay, X, Y, and Z is something that works against good teams. Oh, but ABC, the things that we tried out in game 48 or whatever against the Maple Leafs, another good fast team, that didn't work. So let's try doing these things against the Devils in this series, because we know they're a fast team, and these things tend to work against fast teams. That's what the regular season is for good teams. You figure out what works, what doesn't, how you can effectively cancel out teams that are faster than you or potentially better on paper. This is the time to do it. When you don't do that all season and then you get to the playoffs and you're like, oh my God, the Devils are actually a good team. How do we stop them? you're too late. You are too late to the party.
Yeah, I am encouraged. And I will say, I was lukewarm at best on Laviolette at the moment they hired him. It felt like trying to put a band-aid over a bullet wound. And in so far, there has been a willingness to try things. He at least has yet to just outright condescend to the general public, which I appreciate.
That's good.
That was always my biggest gripe with Gallant was he just talked like he was better than everybody else. Like I'm beneath answering questions after the game. Like that's not one of the prerequisites of being a coach in professional sports. Like I get it. You played the game. You've been coaching a long time, but like a good communicator can effectively communicate with people who have no idea what you're talking about and people who know everything you're talking about, as opposed to Gallant doing well, this is how it is. And it is refreshing to operate in this environment. Real quick, you and I were talking about this before, and it's a topic of conversation because we're assuming Shesterkin's going to start tonight, and that'll be 3 in a row. And the Rangers don't have a back-to-back until I want to say early November, which is a few weeks away. How do you think they should try and sort out this when they get Quick work?
I mean, I mentioned it to you before we started recording. I was surprised that they didn't play Quick in the third period against Columbus because I understand the thought process of, hey, if we put in Quick now, we've essentially punted the game. The counterpoint to that is if you just signed a backup goaltender that could actually play at the NHL level, you wouldn't have to worry about that because you could be feasibly comfortable in playing them in these kinds of situations where they can make a big save and you don't have to necessarily be on pins and needles or playing around this guy. But when you sign Jonathan Quick, a guy who is just doesn't have it anymore, you have to essentially force Shesterkin to play that third period. And there's no back-to-backs, and Shesterkin loves to play. He's been very vocal. Gallant's been vocal about it in the past, where Shesterkin will want to play every single night. Okay, well, if there's no back-to-back, then Shesterkin's going to doubly want to play all these games because there's no incentive for him not to sit. If there were a lot of back-to-backs, I feel like we would have seen Quick, earlier on. But there's, I would have to imagine that they will play Quick at some point before the doubleheaders get going. I would think that they would want to get a game or two of Jonathan Quick, but against two, I don't know. It's tough to really answer that, but it depends on what their confidence level is in him. If they're confident, if Benoit Allaire is confident in this dude's ability to play against, I don't know, I'm just going to name a team, against Toronto or against Edmonton, by all means. I don't think that should be the case in either situation, but by all means. But otherwise, it's going to be hard for Shesterkin to kind of stomach that, I feel like, because there's no back-to-backs, although Jonathan Quick should be playing at some point before the back-to-backs in the schedule start to come in. But again, like, I personally don't have a lot of faith in him. We saw in the preseason how just completely out of sorts he looked. He's not a big goaltender, but he made himself look tiny, minuscule in net. He's flopping around, flailing around. Like, his fundamentals aren't there. I don't know. Hopefully Benoit Allaire can fix him, because right now I don't have any confidence in him.
They need to get him work. Just flat out. He needs to play at some point. Saturday would have made sense to get him in there against Columbus on the road, knowing you were coming back for 2 home games. And you don't want to start Quick tonight because people paid $180 just to get in. And that's kind of an insult to the people who paid all that money to get in if you're going to start the backup goalie for your home opener. You don't do that on principle. I understand that. They need to get him work because, A, they need to see if he has anything left. And if they wait until the back-to-back start and they find out he doesn't have anything left, then you don't really give yourself room. I'm not saying that starting your backup goalie should be like punting, giving up the game, whatever, but the way you and I are looking at it right now, we don't think Jonathan Quick is going to be effective. So they need to determine that one way or another if he has anything left. If he can be a 900 save percentage goalie, an 895 save percentage goalie. Last year, league average was 894. If he can be an 895 goalie this year, the Rangers will probably tolerate that, and we won't see them replace him. But until he plays, we're not going to know where he's at. I don't think they're going to wait until the back-to-back start to get him in, because that's, again, you're not giving yourself enough room to figure out what you have. And to your point, they want to get Shesterkin as much work as possible, but they can't give him too much work. The right number is 55 to 60 at the most. Anything more than 60, and you start getting into the you're going to wear your guy out problem. If they can get Quick in there somewhere in the next week, just to gauge where he's at, to see if he is salvageable or not, then you can start figuring out what you need to do down the road. But until then, we don't know. You and I are just all we have to go off of is the preseason.
Yeah, I mean, and not only that, if Quick struggles, then Shesterkin is going to feel like he's going to have to play every night because he doesn't have a secondary option to fall back on. If the team is not winning games with Jonathan Quick because he has a 840 or an 850 save percentage, then Shesterkin by default is going to be like, all right, just play me. Just play me every night because clearly, like, whatever's going on is not working out. Like the schedule soon is going to be not really easy for this team. I mean, they're going to Seattle and Calgary and Edmonton, and they're going on this West Coast trip early on. Like, there's going to be a lot of moving parts to this kind of road trip. I would have to think that Jonathan Quick is going to see some action at some point. Maybe against Nashville on Thursday. I don't know if that happens. Maybe against a team like Vancouver on the 28th. I don't know if they want to wait that long. But again, like, are you really going to put in Jonathan Quick against Seattle, against Calgary, against Edmonton? Like, the answer is probably no. So it's really tough to gauge, but they're gonna have to get him in sooner rather than later. I would rather them get him in earlier and be like, all right, bro, like this guy's cooked, and them to have a little bit of leeway to figure out who's gonna be the second backup goalie, as opposed to, like you said, waiting until there's no time to then figure out. Like, they don't want to wait until an hour before the essays due to figure out that, oh, their computer doesn't work. Oh, that's not good.
What's it? Igor? Yeah, Igor tonight. He just led them out. Okay. We got a few good replies for this about what's your biggest overreaction through 2 games. I'm going to read you and you tell me whether or not these are based in anything resembling reality. Okay. Number 1. Bread, Phil, and Lafreniere has the potential to be the Rangers' best line since Kreider, Zibanejad, Buchnevich.
They've looked really good through 2 games. It's tough to say if it's an overreaction or not. Through 2 games, they've looked really good. I want to see them continue to play together. I want to see them continue to, get a lot of minutes in. And if this continues, then fantastic. I don't know if it's an overreaction because, again, like, they haven't, it's not 40 games in, it's not 50 games in, so you can't really tell based off of that. But through 2 games, they have looked very impressive, and I hope that this continues.
Yeah, just real quick, because I have long wanted to see Chytil play with a really good player, frankly. He has been in the organization for a hot minute now, and the best players he's played with are Kakko and Lafreniere, who, on a team when you have like Zibanejad and Kreider and Panarin, you would like to see Chytil get real opportunities to be a little bit more dynamic, and playing with Panarin is going to unlock new levels to his game. And Lafreniere, if he continues to be as engaged, especially on the forecheck and when he doesn't have the puck in his possession, that line has a lot of potential to be something really good. Okay, next one. It does not bode well that it feels like the sky is falling whenever Lindgren is not in the lineup.
Yes and no. I think part of it is, and we talked about this earlier on, that they essentially let Lindgren know he wasn't playing 8 seconds before puck drop, and Zach Jones was like, I'm playing? All right, I'll get dressed. Like, he wasn't ready for it either. And therefore, Jones and Schneider didn't look that great, as apparently looked pretty bad for big stretches of that game. Like, they didn't look very good. Part of that definitely is because Jones was, I don't think, ready to be playing because he wasn't expecting to be in the lineup. When Lindgren doesn't play, yeah, I mean, the defense definitely struggles, and that's an issue that I think we'll monitor as the season goes on. They do look a lot more cohesive when the top 4 is together. When Lindgren isn't in the lineup, it gets a little bit more chaotic, I'll say. again, only been 2 games in this regular season so far. We saw one without Lindgren, and yeah, definitely part of it was not having him in the lineup. The Rangers also kind of, I don't want to say they gave up in that second period, but they kind of just let Columbus do whatever they want.
Yeah.
Which Ryan Lindgren doesn't solve. Having him on the ice would sure make the defense better, but that doesn't solve the rest of the team letting Columbus do whatever they want for a whole period.
Jimmy Vesey should be a regular in the lineup.
Yeah, I would prefer Vesey over Goudreau, but that's not happening. So
yeah,
it is what it is.
Yeah, that's where I'm at too. They're not gonna not play Goudreau. They pay him too much money, and they not even just like on practicality. They care about appearances. They don't want to not play a guy who's making that much money.
They gave him a letter too. They're not gonna sit him.
Gustafsson is a better free agent signing than Vinny Trocheck. That's an overreaction, but I do like what Gustafsson's done so far.
It is, yeah. I mean, he's done a lot of smart plays with the puck. He's never going to be the best defenseman on the planet because he's so, I don't want to say worried about the puck, but like when he's so gifted offensively, he's going to leave some defense on the table. But that's what you sign up for. You know what you're getting out of Gustafsson, and it's not like he's bad defensively. Like he's had some really smart plays over the preseason, over the past couple of games. He's definitely one of, if not the best, like fifth defenseman the Rangers have had in a very long time. If you want to say that Braden Schneider is defenseman number 6, and if you want to say that whoever else is defenseman number 5, Ben Harpur ain't it. Jack Johnson's not it, right? Like, for being a fifth defenseman, Erik Gustafsson's pretty damn good. So, it's tough for me to say whether he's better than Trocheck as a signing, but we didn't really like the Trocheck signing, especially for that kind of money. Like, if Trocheck had one specific skill set that he was really good at, like if he was an elite passer, if he had an elite shot, I feel like it would have been a lot more digestible. But he's not exceptional at one thing. So there's weeks go by, and you're like, Trocheck is on this team, right? Like he's there. He does things. And then he has like 3 straight games where he scores 8 points, and you're like, oh my God, Trocheck, what a signing. I don't know.
Gustafsson, John Moore, Kevin Klein, Nick Holden. Rank those 4.
Erik Gustafsson, who cares? Like there's
no respect for John Moore.
I mean,
as the 5th best defenseman on the team, no respect for Kevin Klein in his half an year.
If John Moore was truly good enough to be a number 5 defenseman, he'd still be playing.
He's like 35.
Is he really 35? I mean, yeah, but like ever since he moved on from the Rangers, 33. he was in and out of lineups.
Yeah.
He when he moved on from the Rangers, he had a tough time cracking some lineups. So I don't know if you could give him number 2. Like Kevin Klein, before the season that he retired, was pretty all right.
Yeah.
But even then, he was more of a number 4 on those teams.
Yeah.
He wasn't really a 5. Like, if you had to give me an option between Nick Holden, Jack Johnson, or Erik Gustafsson as number 5, I mean, this is not a competition.
Yeah, no, they've had some real duds on that third line.
Rob O'Gara? Like, come on, give me a break.
Well, that was different. They were not trying to be competitive when they were playing Rob O'Gara and John Gilmore. The point stands.
He was out there. He was a defenseman for the Rangers. That is a factual statement.
Blake Wheeler will not finish the season in the lineup as a regular. That's an overreaction, but it's plausible.
I agree. Especially if he plays the way he has been the last 2 games. Eventually, Peter Laviolette's going to be like, all right, dog, like we gotta sit you out for a couple of games, and if that doesn't improve, then they'll do something else. Because like again, they signed him to be kind of a depth scorer because he put up all these points at Winnipeg. But if he isn't even fast enough to keep up with anybody on this team, it's not going to end well for Wheeler and the team. Eventually, they're going to find some way to fix this. Maybe Wheeler's like a chainsaw that you kind of have to rev up 75 times before he gets going. Maybe that happens, but for right now, I don't see it. So it is an overreaction, but it's definitely one that I can see happening.
Would you rather have VZ or Wheeler? And what would have to happen for the Rangers to actively choose VZ over Wheeler in the lineup?
If he keeps looking the way that he has been,
Hmm.
because you don't even need analytics to tell you. Just watch him skate.
Yeah.
He can't keep up with anybody on the ice. Forget analytics, forget counting stats. Literally just turn on both games and just watch Blake Wheeler play. He's so slow. He's not skating defensively. He's not skating offensively either. He's kind of just there. And it's very, disappointing to see right now. So if he continues to play like this, it wouldn't surprise me if they quickly either put VZ there, Goudreau maybe they put up there because I don't know, because he makes a bunch of money and he has a letter on his sweater. Like maybe they do that, but Wheeler's not gonna last too long here if that's how he plays. That's just, it is what it is.
I think there's a world where we see VZ in for Wheeler, not in the not too distant future, if he continues to look uncomfortable. But 2 games, give him a break, give him a little
Yeah.
bit of a break. Brennan Othman didn't make the team because they gave out more contracts than roster spots, not because of play. I think that's a reasonable take. I think if
Yeah.
they I think if they didn't bring in so many guys in free agency, I think Othman, based on his preseason, at least could have started up here. I don't know if he would have stayed the entire season, but I think if they didn't have Pitlick and Bonino and Gaudreau and VZ and all those bottom 6 guys, there's a world where Othman at least gets, a cup of coffee up here before they send him back down to Hartford. And that's
Yeah,
not to say he won't come up later this year, which he
sure.
probably will.
I mean, I think the argument is, would you rather Brendan Othman play 6 minutes a game in the NHL or play 20 minutes on every situation known to mankind in the AHL? He scored 2 goals in the
Yeah.
AHL opener, and he looked really good. And he wouldn't have gotten any of those opportunities playing, 4th-line minutes on the Rangers. That's really the argument right now that we have about Othman. It's not about his skill level, because we will see Othman up at the NHL at some point in the very near future. Maybe there's another injury. Maybe Rem Pitlick goes down again. Maybe somebody gets sick for a game, and we'll see Othman up here sooner rather than later. But I think it more has to do with, you sign Blake Wheeler, at least for right now, to play on the 3rd line. Will Cooley took the other 3rd line spot, and Trocheck is down the middle. So would you rather Othman play 4th line minutes and garbage time, or would you rather give Othman the longest leash on the planet and just have him create chaos in the AHL? That was the decision that the Rangers had to make, and the Rangers chose the AHL, probably rightfully so.
You know what that reminds me of? Speaking of, the scene in Anger Management where Adam
No.
Sandler catches the dodgeball and he
No.
looks at all the little kids and he says, "You're in trouble." That's what Brendan Othman's doing to a bunch of children in the AHL. A bunch of children and guys who are like 37 years old, just getting tormented by a 20-year-old.
Yeah, I haven't seen the movie. I don't watch movies, but I can see. I
This is
get
true.
your point. Yeah, like Brendan Othman is looking really good right now in the AHL, and but it's not only that he's looking good; he's also gaining the confidence to do it.
Yeah.
Playing 6 minutes with Barclay Goudreau at the NHL level is not going to instill a lot of confidence in you. It just is what it is.
And that's something they've struggled with their young players, frankly, is building them up to a point where they feel comfortable playing at the NHL level. They have more than I don't even know. I was trying to think of a round number to be like more than 5, more than 10, more than 15, more than 15 guys have come up and just like not hit right away and then been getting the 7 minutes a game on the 4th line over the last 10 to 15 years. I mean, I think about 19-year-old JT Miller playing 6 minutes twice for John Tortorella like 10 years ago. Just no idea of how to make these young guys feel good about their games in the slightest bit. Next one.
Yeah.
Will Cooley has an additional layer to his game, that aggressiveness, that intangibleness that really nobody else on the team has. Like, we talk about this a lot where like the Rangers have a lot of nice guys on their team. They don't really have any assholes. Will Cooley is the good kind of asshole that a good hockey team needs.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, I agree. I feel like there's a little bit of that on Lafreniere too. Lafreniere is not scared of getting into the dirty areas and and yapping and getting like that kind of hashtag grit, hashtag sandpaper that we all love to talk about so much. Lafreniere has a little bit of that for sure, but Will Cooley definitely provides that in the bottom six, which is always good because it's not just that you need players that can do that. He's also just good at hockey. So when you have somebody that can do both at the same time and not have to, sacrifice goal scoring or sacrifice defense or whatever, when you just have a good all-around third liner right now, that also provides that edge that the hockey men TM love. By all means, he's great.
Will Cooley will be an eventual 20-goal scorer in the NHL.
That's impossible to answer. Like he scored his NHL first NHL goal against Columbus. He's looked good through two games. It's not like he's been a passenger. I mean, my man's has really been looking good, and he's been noticeable through long stretches when he's been playing. So it's definitely a good sign for his future. He scored one goal.
One and two. If we do math, that's 41.
Listen, there's no...
He's on pace for 41, Andrew.
Great. Isn't Kreider on pace for 164 or something like that?
Correct.
Yeah, great. I would love for Will Cooley to score 20 goals. I'd love him to score 25, 30, 40. It's impossible to answer that right now. It's been 2 games. I know Will Cooley has been up and down before this point, but he scored 1 goal. Can we give him a little bit of time before we give him the he better be a 20-goal scorer? Everybody relax. Hold on.
This is why it's called Overreaction Monday, Andrew.
Yeah, I guess.
We're overreacting.
Sure.
I think there's a world where in like 2 or 3 years from now, he's a top 6 forward. I think there's a world in which he's a top 6 forward on this team. I think that's not out of the realm of possibility.
If he continues to look as confident as he does now, then there's a reasonable chance for sure. Because again, so when you're a young player in the NHL, one of the most important things as you're growing in the league is your confidence. Because if you're not confident early to make plays that you might have otherwise, well then, that you get into that habit and you play scared, or you play, not to make a mistake and all these things when you're supposed to make mistakes when you're really young, because that's the time to do it. You learn from your mistakes when you're 19, 20, 21, so that when you're 25 playing the NHL, you don't make those mistakes. And Will Cooley right now is looking really confident, and it's good for his game.
All right, that was a good batch. We actually got a good response, so thank you to everybody who left us an overreaction. It always helps when we get a little bit from the outside world. Real quick, Arizona tonight. Arizona's frisky. We talked about it during the preseason, during our preview when we did the Pacific Division, not the Pacific, the Arizona. Arizona's in the Central Division, which makes no sense, but Arizona has a few guys.
What does the league do that makes sense, Nick? Can you?
This is true.
You wanna make a list, because it's not gonna be very long.
There's a team with some high upside guys. We got the Battle of the Bastards tonight. We got Will Cooley versus Logan Cooley. We got a little something there going on. Shout out to Hockey Stat Miner for dropping that. Matthias McKelly, Clayton Keller, a guy whose game I've always been high on, who it took him 3 years, and then the Flames just giving him away for nothing to Arizona. Juuso Välimäki, who's a pretty good defenseman. Arizona will not make this game easy, but the Rangers... we don't do prediction bullshit like that because there's no point for they're going to go play the game in 20 minutes. I just would like them to continue doing what they've been doing. That's all I need. Win, lose in overtime, win in overtime. Keep playing good hockey, and over the course of a long season, you'll get rewarded.
They play Arizona tonight. They play Nashville on Thursday. Both games at home, and then they go on that West Coast trip. They go to Seattle Saturday, and that concludes, this week of games here. I would preferably, obviously I could say, I'd like them to win every game. I'd like them to go 3-0. Yeah, but realistically, at least 2-1 would be great. That's the ideal. Arizona's a beatable team. Nashville right now is not looking good. I watched them play so far this season. They have looked bad. Yeah. It's been UC Saros and everybody else. UC Saros is doing everything he possibly can to make sure that the Preds don't give up 11 goals a game. He's obviously an elite caliber goaltender. He's looked really good. The rest of the Preds have not looked great at all. So that should be a win. Seattle's a frisky team. We kind of never know what happens there. Hopefully they win, but I would say 2-1 conservatively would be great.
God, really gonna have to stay up till like 1 a.m. on a Sunday to watch them play Seattle. That's terrible.
That's right.
That's
Yeah,
terrible.
well, we're
man.
crazy, so we do it because we're
That's
psychotic.
true. That's true. That's true. Real quick, this is something I wanted to talk about before we get out of here. I think we miscalculated. I think I would almost rather Ryan Reeves be a healthy scratch on the Rangers than be in Toronto, because he's going to get quoted every single game, and it is going to be everywhere after every single game, because he is the only person in the entire NHL who likes talking to the media. So like if he has a burrito at lunch, he's going to tell TSN that he had a burrito at lunch. If he got Shake Shack for dinner before the game, he's going to tell Sportsnet that he had Shake Shack. And we are going to hear every single thought he has because he wants to talk. And it's unfortunate that the NHL does not have more players who enjoy talking, because unfortunately we are subjected to people who are clowns. Like, what is he talking about? Oh, I don't appreciate getting jumped. You boarded the guy's teammate face first into the wall. You threw the first 3 punches of the fight, and then Jack, I pushed you to the ground. I just clown.
Yeah,
He's
I
a
don't know.
clown.
I don't know. I mean, I disagree that I would rather him as a healthy scratch, because then he would be playing 30 games for this team. I don't want that. So I'm good. Thank you. I could ignore him talking to TSN. I could not ignore him when he's playing 6 minutes for the Rangers doing absolutely nothing. That I cannot ignore. I'm sorry.
That's fair. That's fair. All right, that'll do it for this week's episode of the Liberty Blue Podcast, available on all the major podcasting platforms, YouTube as well. To the 40 new subscribers since last week, welcome to the show. Glad you guys are here. Now it starts to get fun. There's actual hockey to talk about, and we don't have to pull shit out of our ass. So enjoy the home opener. Hopefully they win. We'll see you guys next week.
That'd be great. Later.